Okay, if I say these words to you, how do they make you feel? Are you ready? Learning walks, lesson observations, peer review, student feedback, parent questionnaire, learning walks, marking moderation. What kind of emotions are coming up for you? Because you do realize that all of these form a feedback loop that is really vital to you and your growth. So if you're feeling a little bit, keep watching. Let's see if we can clear that for you.
Hi, I'm Selena Woodward, and I'm an English and drama teacher, university lecturer, and with edufolios.org, a big-time reflective practitioner. So how can reflective practice help you grow your teaching skills, fall in love with your profession all over again, and help you nail accreditation and teacher registration with less stress and less work? Well, this is the Reflective Teacher Podcast.
Welcome to the Reflective Teacher Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Selena Woodward. How are you? And where are you tuning in? Are you listening right now in your car on our podcast providers? Maybe on iTunes, on Google Podcast, maybe on Spotify, on Stitcher. My goodness, we are in so many places. Or have you been watching this on YouTube? Don't forget that I am now video recording every single episode and putting them on our YouTube channel. And if you head to edufolios.org/YT, you will be taken straight there so you can subscribe. Why should you subscribe? Well, I'm doing bonus content in that space. Bonus content like how-to guides for edufolios and lots of other stuff. So don't miss out. Head to edufolios.org/YT and subscribe today. Why not? Now, today, I want to talk about a subject that I know is really, really important. It's actually really important at every single career stage, but it's come up for me as a topic for discussion through working with those of you at Highly Accomplished and Lead. Now, as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, at Highly Accomplished and Lead, our level of impact expands out to our impact on our colleagues. And the number one thing that I hear all the time from my students, those people I work with at HA and Lead, is that they don't have any evidence of their impact on their colleagues because they didn't receive any feedback. They didn't receive or they didn't ask for any feedback. Leaders in schools, people are running professional development without checking to see whether that worked, without measuring the impact of that. Now, there is a really big opportunity that is being missed here. Now, if you tune into a couple of the episodes, which I will place in the show notes, I'm thinking the episode with Sarah Birrell, the episode with Angela, you will hear about schools that have really embraced the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers as a tool for helping educators understand their impact across the board. They're really inspiring stories. So if you are in a leadership position and you're thinking, oh, whoa, that sounds quite interesting, or you want a lead project and you think, whoa, that sounds quite interesting, head to the show notes for today's episode and see what you can hear in those podcasts because there's some real inspiration in there. You'll find the show notes for today at edufolios.org/145. 145. That's edufolios.org/145. Make sure you head there and seek some of this inspiration. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment below and let us know, what does feedback look like at your site? Not feedback for your students, not feedback For your parents, feedback about you. How do you get feedback in your job? Now, I hear from many, many teachers at all career stages that they pretty much don't get very much. The only feedback they might have is at their performance review that happens annually, where we have to set those targets. And even that is really, what do you want? And here's two things that we have to put on there because of the school improvement plan. And that's really interesting because there are really no other professions I can think of where we don't get feedback. To be a valued professional in any industry, it is a vital skill to be able to accept feedback and to know what to do with that. And yet, in our profession, am I right in saying that we don't often get much opportunity for that? What's it like at your site? Tell us in the comments. I would love to hear that things are happening that don't feel invasive, that give you constructive feedback. I'm not talking about something that's not helpful here. I'm talking about something that helps you to be the best teacher you can be. The reality is, if we are not open to receiving feedback, if at our site there are not ways, policies, strategies, processes that mean that we get regular feedback, the only feedback we ever get is from ourselves. And let me be honest, how many of you here have a constant narrative evaluating how that lesson went and telling yourself either it went great or it was awful and we'll just worry about that for the rest of the term? Is that you? Let me know, because I know I've been there before. I know I've also been in a position where I'm being observed and the pressure of that feels huge. But if it's the right person done in the right way, it can be incredibly valuable. Because as we know, when we're stuck in our own head, we can't see what we need to see. Our brain is protecting us and keeping us safe. It doesn't want to show us where we can improve. It wants to keep us safe. It doesn't want to show us that that didn't work with that kid. It's going to let us focus on the fact that it worked with that one. Our brain only knows what it knows. So it can't even go, hey, I read this thing the other week that you haven't experienced yet that could help here. So when we don't have those feedback loops from other people, we are really, really missing out on an opportunity to gather data points, information that we can use to make a plan, to keep us challenged in our professional practice, to help us understand our strengths and, of course, work towards growing and improving. And if you're thinking, Sally, you're not a psychologist, how dare you tell me how my brain works? I'm going to ask you to go and listen to the episode with Jen Rafferty, who is very qualified in this area, who spoke exactly about these things, about the way our brain kind of puts blinkers on and only shows us what it wants to show us, how we can be very conscious of that, what we can do with that. It's an amazing episode. It's episode 134. But again, I'll pop a link in the show notes today so you can go straight to Jen's episode. We've talked a lot about the process of reflective practice and how it helps us to step outside of what's going on in our head. So we've talked about the benefits of doing that by ourselves in our Edufolio or wherever it is that you are gathering your evidence. And we've talked a lot about how the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers provide us with an external context to what's going in our head. They provide us with a focal point that we can go, okay, have I done that and that? Yes. Oh, but what about this? It allows us to move outside of our comfort zone to consider a broader picture. And yes, I know 148 focus areas is super overwhelming. I hear all the time about people just going, right, I've got all of this, even if it's just proficient and we've got 37, right, you're going through each one going, how can I cover this? How can I cover that? Remember, our Edufolios, we don't do it that way. It's too hard. We tell our story. We share what we've been doing, the stuff that's in our head, what we've been thinking. We write it down, even if it's just a few sentences. And then we use the standards guide to ask ourselves simple questions So we don't see 37 or 148 focus areas. We see the right focus areas for the story. And in doing that, we get the opportunity to expand our understanding. All of you who subscribe received an email from me a couple of weeks ago with a video showing you exactly how to do that. If you haven't seen that video, again, head to our YouTube channel at edufolios.org/YT. It's sat there waiting for you to show you. This is really important. It's a feedback loop using a rubric and your own brain. Okay. And that is better than nothing. If that's where you feel safe, that is one way of creating a feedback loop. And that's enough for some of us. But today I want to talk about why we don't have a feedback loop. It seems bonkers to me. And I know firsthand that being observed and having people look at your marking and things like that can feel really threatening. That's that brain again. And they're going to find a thing. My worth will be less if they criticize me. We need to be okay with receiving feedback. We need to understand that it's just a piece of data. It's not about you. It's about your skills, and it's an opportunity. The minute you see something that's lower than you want it, get excited. Yes, brilliant. Something I can grow. Don't go, oh my God, I'm shockingly bad. I've done that. We all do that, but we don't have to do that. Evidence Engine alumni, right now I'm talking directly to you. I'm looking right down the camera at YouTube. Come and look into my eyes. I want you to remember what we learned in the Evidence Engine about planning for impact. I want you to remember how important it is that if there is no feedback loop in your site's policy, in your site's ways and procedures, you need to create one. Particularly you, ladies and gentlemen out there who are working for HAT or LEAD, highly accomplished or LEAD, and definitely our pre-service teachers. We need this feedback. Without it, we are stuck with only what we already know, not with an opportunity for expansion and growth by seeing it through somebody's eyes, somebody else's eyes, somebody else's experiences, someone else's passion. Okay. And it should be a reciprocal process. If someone observes you, I guarantee they will take something away that they will try themselves later. So there are ways of giving feedback that do not need to cause us harm. We can affirm each other. We can swap with each other, swap knowledge, and we can grow together. Without the feedback, you will continue to do what you have always done, and you will be blissfully unaware of whether it's working well, what you could grow and improve, and what you should be celebrating. 3 things that are incredibly important for you so you understand your impact. And remember, when you're reflecting on the standards, that's all we care about: impact, impact, impact. So my question for you today, and this is a question for leadership, principals, deputy principals, heads of teaching and learning, lean in, lean in. My question for you today is, where is your feedback loop? I want you to reflect on that question. I want you to think about how many points of feedback are in your loop. How do you receive feedback? If you are reflecting on your practice regularly, that's one loop. Brilliant. Good work. Great start. Can we expand that? Holtz, lead teachers, highly accomplished, can you help create opportunities for more feedback loops? Because it's going to help you with your application. Proficient and graduate teachers, get into those feedback loops and grow faster. We will all grow faster. If I opened up your calendar today, would I see a slot protected in your day at some point each week, each fortnight, maybe even each term, where you've blocked a time for you to reflect? I know of some leadership teams who are now allocating time in meetings with staff to allow their educators to log into Edufolios and just brain dump their reflection. I know of one school in particular who I'm going to get on the podcast very soon, who actually has an entire cycle. So they have in one meeting, everybody is uploading photographs of things they've taken during the last couple of weeks. In the next meeting, they're adding those photographs into a reflection and starting to add their notes. And the last meeting, I won't go into it too much, but there is an actual plan system using Edufolios to support it, where there is a process to build a feedback loop. It's brilliant. I can't wait to share it with you. What's in your calendar? How are you, as the grown-up in your own profession, holding yourself accountable and creating space for feedback? Have you got someone you trust, someone who has your interests at heart, who you could ask to come and sit in your lesson and look for a particular thing? So if your Edufolio data or your reflection data or just your gut is telling you that you need some support with something, let's say it's behavior management or differentiation, or one that comes up all the time, ATSI. Can you have someone come and observe your lesson or review your lesson plan with you to give you some feedback on what you've written, what you've planned, or what you deliver? Someone you trust, someone who's going to care for you, come to you with a heart-centered approach of, wow, affirmations, this is really good. I affirm your practice. Hey, I had this thought while I was observing you. Do you want to try this? Is there someone like that? Can you find someone like that? If so, ask them. I challenge you right now to ask them to give you some feedback on something and then reflect on that feedback. Can you do that? There's a second feedback loop. That's exciting. That's true now. Good work. Where in your process are you getting feedback from parents? Now, as a teacher, I'm always terrified of feedback from certain parents. That's why we've just done 3 episodes on parent-carer relationships. This is a part of that. Where in your year do you get feedback from parents? Now, it might be that you receive a beautiful email saying, thank you so much. Or it might be that you receive an angry email saying, that's all feedback. You're going to have to sift through it and see what that feedback tells you. But is there a formal way? Do you send out the questionnaire to your parents at the end of the term saying, hey, how's your kid been? What have you noticed? Have you noticed them being happy when they come home? Have you noticed them being a bit cloudy, as I call it? Have you noticed, what have they been raving about at home? What have they been telling you about their learning? All of that feedback is also valuable. Not every parent's going to fill that in. We know that, right? But it's a great way of building a parent-carer relationship, and it's a great way of getting a third feedback loop into what you're doing in your job every day, because parents are part of the community of learning. You know that. Comment below, what feedback loops do you have? There's 3. There's reflecting on our practice. There's getting a colleague to either review a lesson plan, a unit plan, observe a lesson with us. Just give us some actual feedback from another perspective, which will help build our understanding and give us new ideas and perspectives. And there's parents, sending a survey or finding a way to connect with parents and get their feedback, either before, after, or maybe even during a parents' evening. Those are 3 methods. Comment if you're watching this on YouTube. How else do you get feedback? What else is in your feedback loop? Let's see if we can share with each other here today. If your answer is, well, actually, we don't have any feedback loops, not really beyond what you said at the beginning of the podcast, Sal, where we do our performance review, our annual review, and we have to sit with our line manager and make the goals. That's my feedback loop. I want you to think about what we've talked about today and how actually as a professional, that's not good enough, guys. You deserve more than that. That's not going to help you grow. And it would be great if you had moments along the way where when you got to that meeting once a year, you could report back what you've been doing, what feedback you've received, and then use that to plan the goal for next time. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be richer? If necessary, send this podcast episode to your line manager and go, whoa, have you heard this? I'll be the one. Hi, if you're listening, I'll be the one who gets them thinking. Let's see if we can shift ourselves towards strong feedback loops, strong, powerful feedback loops that help us as a profession to move forward and make that really normal, really good and positive. The theme at the Holt conference this year was building momentum. Building momentum. We have a very tiny percentage of our population who have gone through Holt. That's highly accomplished and leadership. And we need to put more people through that because we all deserve to celebrate our impact. We all require that opportunity for feedback, but we shouldn't be waiting to fill in a piece of paperwork to get that feedback. It should be something that's happening all the time. I believe that to build momentum, to get more people into the process of wanting to do that report, that portfolio, produce that evidence, if feedback loops were a normal part of what we did, if the teaching standards were the thing that informed and structured that feedback, then when it came to creating evidence for proficiency, full registration, graduate, highly accomplished, and lead, it would just be normalized. It would be so usual. It wouldn't feel like such a huge cognitive load. And that is what I work with when I work at schools. I help them to see their practice in the standards every single day across their site. So everybody's kind of already doing it. And then when they decide to apply, they've already got a lot of the evidence. It's a case of organizing it. That's what we talk about in the evidence engine too, how to do that. And I've got alumni now going off and teaching that at their sites and building this momentum that we need. And I genuinely believe that without these feedback loops, it's going to be really hard to build that momentum because only, I think it's 0.3% of our teaching population have actually gone and asked for that feedback loop for that process. So there will be other reasons too. And you don't have to have feedback just because you're doing accreditation. We need feedback to grow our skill set, to improve what we're doing, to feel like what we're doing is worth it, to understand that we're making a difference, and to understand that there's always a challenge ahead. So many people come to the evidence engine going, I want to do highly accomplished because I need a challenge. And then they find out that they've got gaps and they've got their challenge before they even bother with highly accomplished. They're like, brilliant, now I know what I need to work on. And they have a plan. And because they have a plan and they have that feedback, they know what steps they need to take. They feel empowered by that feedback and their ability to move forward. Momentum builds, confidence grows, and we get more highly accomplished and lead teachers. Without that feedback, it's really hard to know if you're doing a great job. It's really hard to know where to grow. And it's really even harder to know how to grow because you, as I say, in your own head, you don't necessarily have the outside agencies to support you in your growth. Now, all of this conversation has been inspired by the work of Donald Miller, who is an amazing marketer and businessman. And I have been doing a course and I was thinking about feedback loops and I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is what we need to talk about on the podcast today. And I want to share with you a quote from Mr. Miller himself. And I want you to see how this resonates with you. Comment below this video and let me know how this quote resonates. What happens for you when you hear these words? I've got it here in my book. I'll read it to you. This is what he says at the end of the chapter that I was studying. Value-driven professionals establish routines in which they get feedback from people they trust, and they use that feedback to grow their career. Value-driven professionals. Are you a value-driven professional? I don't know any teacher who's in it for any other reason than I love kids. I want them to succeed. My values are every child should grow and have the opportunity. Is that you? Do you work from your values? Are you someone who wants to give value to your students, to your community? I bet you are. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if not. So you are a value-driven professional, which means that a value-driven professional should be establishing routines in which you get feedback from people you trust. Feedback from people you have no respect for, sadly, is going to go in one ear and out the other. So choose, who do you trust? And then use that feedback to grow your career. So giving a PD session on something and not getting feedback, that's not growing your career, not in a wholehearted way. Get feedback. What worked well? What didn't? What do you need to grow? And also get feedback from those teachers to understand how they've implemented what you've done. That's what you need for highly accomplished, right? Impact on your professionals, on your colleagues. All right. So I have never met a teacher, as I say, who is not value driven. And yet I have met many teachers who do not have an established feedback loop to rely on. My question again, reflect on this in your Edufolio, in the comments below this video, wherever you reflect. I've talked a lot about feedback loops. I've given you lots of ideas. What is your feedback loop looking like right now? How do you feel about that? Are you noticing that that's on purpose because you're feeling uncomfortable about getting feedback? Why? What does that say? Can you create a strong feedback loop for your practice from various places and from people you trust so you can drive your career forward? Let me know in the comments what that's going to look like. Share in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, the reflection you've written in your Edufolio where you share your thoughts on this. Leaders, principals, deputy principals, this is huge for you. And lead teachers, heck, there's an opportunity for you here in professional development and learning and leadership. I hope this episode's got you thinking. I hope you're giving yourself some feedback right now. And if you have any feedback from me on this episode, I would love to hear it. You can find it on YouTube, comment below that video and give me your feedback. What did this do for you? Did it get you angry? Did it get you thinking? What has it done? Let me know. What could I have talked about differently? I love feedback. Share below, go to the YouTube video and add a comment. I would love to receive your feedback because feedback has always been a huge part of my professional growth. I come from the UK where it was kind of forced upon me whether I liked it or not. So I know, the discomfort around it. And I've had to learn about what that means for me and how valuable that feedback is. So I encourage you now, reflect on your feedback loop. At the very least, start reflecting for yourself. At the very best, find someone you trust who can observe you, who can read your plans, who you can work with, who can give you feedback. Remember to document that. Remember to reflect on that feedback and make a note of how that's helping you to grow and see the impact that you have every single day. I can't wait to read your comments and receive your feedback. That's it for this week on the Reflective Teacher Podcast. I'll see you again soon. Take care.